Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we help to simplify the lives of our college-bound kids' families. Bobby Hood is here with me. I'm Kristin Clark. I'm a career exploration coach for 16 to 26-year-olds. And Bobby is going to tell us all about what's happening with test optional today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, kind of a developing story, right? But I think anyone who's got kids coming, planning for college has probably run across one of these articles, right? Which is, a lot of them are just saying test optional is going away, or like a lot of them say the SAT is coming back, right? But it didn't go anywhere, right?
Right? Well, and Bobby, we've talked about this for months, where we're like,
Mhm.
if you want any merit scholarships, if you want anything, you have to take these assessments. And it's interesting that now some of the schools that were the most against them are starting to rethink.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think, just the simple thing is what has happened, right? So over the past 2 months, three of the Ivies, right? Dartmouth, Yale, and Brown have each individually announced that they are now back to requiring test scores. And the reason they did it, each of them said that, they've had a few years of trying test optional. They ran the numbers on it, and they can now safely conclude that the students that submitted scores, like they can correlate the scores to success in college.
Okay,
That's always
define
been true.
define
Yeah.
that.
The students who have the higher scores seem to be better prepared for college coursework for the difficulty of it. They're getting, decent grades. They are staying in school. They're not transferring. They're continuing, right? Because that's the thing that you and I always come back to. It's a money business, right?
Mhm.
They want students who will come and continue and not transfer and not drop out, right? And
Yeah.
so those students are succeeding better, and they are not seeing that correlation with the students, right, that were coming in test optional. And so they have said they are switching back to requiring test scores, right? And then that leaves everyone else, right? And so you've got like Chicago and Columbia are still staying test optional for now, but Princeton, Stanford, Cornell, and Pennsylvania and Harvard have all said they're going to keep test optional for at least one more year. And then they're going to decide, right? So we know that some are staying test optional and some aren't. But so that's what, so then of course, other schools nationally will probably follow the lead of the Ivies. Some will, some won't. Uh, and of course, University of California is the the network that has gone completely test blind, which is a different matter,
Yeah, and
right?
Bobby, have they run the numbers in California? Where are
So
they where are they on this?
so California has said they are completely happy with their test blind decision. I think it makes them different, and they feel like that is for equity purposes, that's accomplishing what they want. Who knows what it'll be? When they originally announced that they were going test blind, they said that they were going to create their own test that would be the
Right?
University of California test. And then they never made another announcement ever about that. So the whole idea was they were going to go test blind and create their own test that was more equitable. They may have discovered that, like, it's kind of impossible to make like these multiple choice standardized tests have problems with comparing students, right? They're automatically just a little bit like discriminatory against students who don't have money, who can't prepare, right?
Right.
And things like that. So they may have discovered, like, oh, you can't make it any better. Like, there are just definite problems with the SAT and ACT, but that's inherent to the test itself, I think, right?
Right.
So they may have just given up and they're like, hey, this is working okay for us, right? But the important thing is the same thing that you and I have been talking about since it started, which is test optional doesn't mean that tests are optional, as you alluded to a minute ago, right? If you don't have tests to submit, right, then your application is going to be judged completely based on your transcript, GPA, activities, essays, and recommendations. And really, it's going to be transcript and GPA is 80%, right? And then everything else, activities, right? Your essays, your letters of recommendation, all that is 20%. right?
Yeah. And Bobby, I was just listening to, or I saw an article where it talked about how one of the admissions counselors or admissions, I don't know the right name.
Yeah,
Let's say counselors.
advisors. Yep.
Thank you. That, he would read 10 different applications every morning.
Hmm.
Right. And I thought about that and I was like, oh my gosh, you know how different you are day to day. And I was
Hmm.
like, what if you're the kid that he reads it and he's got an off day or something different, So you look at that and what I see on the test is there's at least a number, right?
Right.
There's a way to calculate that and it's not completely subjective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing is, so like if you in freshman year of high school, if you aren't really paying attention to the fact that suddenly it counts for college and you don't do well your freshman year, then you've got to fight out of that low GPA your whole time. But if you do improve and improve and improve and your GPA goes up all 4 years, that's a pretty good looking application, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the perfect application is it's great the whole time. What is a disaster is if your GPA is slowly going down. And that's what people need to guard against is as you get busier and busier and you start taking AP classes and you take too many AP classes and your GPA goes down throughout high school. That is a very scary transcript for a college to look at because that makes it look like you are not prepared for college level work, right? But if your GPA is going up as you take harder and harder classes, that's great, right? And the thing is, though, if your GPA and transcript doesn't tell the story you want, there's only one way to fix that. And that's by getting an SAT or ACT score that shows that you have
You get it, that you know it.
cognitive skill to deal with high level college level work, right? And so test optional has always just meant if you have a killer GPA, you don't have to send test scores. That's all it means, right?
Right.
Because basically University of California system being test blind means you can't come to University of California if you have a terrible GPA or a mediocre GPA, right? But other schools, you can have a mediocre GPA and a killer SAT score, and you can get in.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the whole story. I mean, that's all it is. And so, I saw an article this morning that, that said the return of the SAT has parents scrambling to hire $500 an hour SAT tutors and things like that. Right. This isn't a scramble. There's still plenty of time. If you have a high school junior, now's the time, right? Because you'd like to have your scores in, but yes, I mean, I think
right, because the seniors, that's a done deal, right? They're not having to worry about it.
Seniors are done, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But so if you've got a junior with a killer GPA, I still think, I mean, that student very much is capable of getting a high SAT or ACT score.
Mm-hmm.
So you ought to go ahead and do it, right? You shouldn't be going and picking from the remaining test optional places because I think what we have, like the one thing that we've learned now is even the places that are test optional, they're starting to realize, and I think I've said that I suspected this for years, ever since they started doing it. I suspect that they look at a test optional applicant and they assume that they couldn't have gotten a good test score.
Yeah. So now you're saying that there's bias from
exactly
not taking the assessment.
Right. And so I suspect that basically what test optional means at a lot of these colleges is they basically they're assuming you have a 1,000 or a 21 on the SAT or ACT and you're not submitting, and they're treating you like you're that applicant, right? So go get the score, right? And that's the great thing about working with me is like the generally courses, SAT courses, you work for months and months, right? But it's mid-March. There's an SAT in June. There's an ACT in June. There's another ACT in July. That is plenty of time to prepare. So if you haven't, if you're suddenly going, oh gosh, we were going to try to the test optional thing, but now I think I see why this might not be a good idea.
Well, Bobby,
then hit me up and I'll give you some advice.
Yeah. And that's why I trusted you to coach my son, because it wasn't this long drawn out thing. I mean, I am just kind of a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, get it done and move on type of person. Right. Yep. And it's like, I love that that's how you treat students is you give them what they need. And it's not necessarily the 8-month, 1 year, 2 year, 4 year program, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a student literally just 2 days ago, a parent called and said they had done, I think they had spent $3,000 with one of the local tutoring outfits here in Dallas, and their student score had gone down 100 points on the SAT after doing all of that work, months and months of taking courses from this local tutoring group here in Dallas. And then they, said, okay, well, we've got to fix this. And so we'll see how it happens. I'll report back. But, I already met with her once, and she's actually taking the test today, but we'll see again. We'll see. We'll keep working toward the June SAT as well. But even just from the one session, I suspect that she may have gotten her confidence back, and she may be able to, improve her score significantly on today's test. So we'll see. But that's what it's all about. But anyway, that's all. So you can always ask us questions. You can contact me on my website, on my contact form, bobbyhoodonlinetutoring.com. You can contact Kristin. And that's what we're here to do, is talk about these things, right? You don't have to enroll in tutoring with me for me to give you advice about whether you should take the test, which test you should take. I can help you figure all those things out. And that's it. That's the story.
Yeah. And if anybody's listening, if you have questions, we would love to answer any of those. We've got some people that are chiming in the chat, so I want to make sure that. Oh, Kanana. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
All right.
because I feel stressed with the SAT. Any thoughts
Yeah.
for us, Bobby?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's something that we need to have a show on soon, because the new digital SAT is so significantly different from the past paper SAT, right? And so this is incredibly stressful. And so with the new digital SAT, there are only 4 practice tests to use to practice on. College Board has said that they're going to release 1 or 2 more in the spring of 2024. Feels like we're there now, so I'm waiting to see those tests, right? But the practice tests are just practice tests. We don't know what the real test exactly is going to be like. And the first real test for the new digital SAT was 10 days ago. And students all over the nation reported 2 things. One is it was significantly harder than the 4 practice tests that were out there. That's really, really bad, right?
Right.
And that scares the heck out of students, except that your scores are compared to the other students out there. So technically, a hard test isn't necessarily a bad thing, but scores are going to be coming out next Monday on the new digital SAT. And so once we round up and say, okay, my students who thought that test was so hard, I told them, well, you were prepared, so you probably are going to get a surprisingly, nice score on that. But who knows? We don't know. So we need to report back on that. But like, my answer for right now is the new digital SAT is brand new. The ACT has been a known quantity for 20 years. The ACT is very consistent, and there are many, many past ACT tests out there. So if you're stressed about SAT, consider focusing on the ACT, where there are so many practice tests. It's completely consistent, right? And then your other question was, why is it so difficult to get into universities? And I mean, that's because everything has changed so much, right? It's so confusing with, right, the whole test optional thing.
You know, Bobby, we've talked in the past, though, about, the whole difficulty question, and that if you focus on the colleges or universities that are right for you and your skill level, do you want to go into your spiel on that?
This is the exact answer. I'm so glad you said that, because that's the thing I was just thinking about is it's not difficult to get into university. It's really not. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of universities in the United States, and almost any student can go to, every student can go to one of them.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always somewhere you can go, especially if your GPA and your scores are low enough, you can go to get an associate's degree at a community college, right? And then you can transfer into university. It is hard to get into highly selective universities. It is hard to get into famous universities that are talked about in TV shows and movies, right? Those are hard to get into, right? Because of capitalism. I mean, the answer
Right.
to why is it difficult to
Yeah.
get into university is capitalism, right? But like, there's lots of people trying to get in and few spots. But that is literally what this show is. College Planning Untangled is. That's what we've been doing since 2019, right? 5 years. All we've been doing is every week talking about how to untangle and how it's not as stressful. It doesn't have to be as stressful, and it doesn't have to be as confusing as you think. So literally, I would say go to our YouTube channel and just go back and start watching the things with titles that appeal to you. And I think you'll find a whole lot of things that will show you. I mean, that's the answer, because we have talked
It
about
is.
just about everything at this point, right?
And here's Kanana, here's one other thing I want to say to you. In the YouTube channel, Bobby has given a lot of really great tips and tricks based
Yep.
on both the ACT and the SAT on just how to think through those questions. That's another great resource for you to look at.
Absolutely. And we've gone through the whole application process, our college admissions timeline. And if you download that timeline that we have available, right, you can go through that timeline while you're in high school, and it tells you what to do sophomore year, what to do junior year, what to do senior year. And if you just follow that, it simplifies things a whole lot, right? And you asked about earning credit while you're at university. Like, the amazing thing is earning credit before you even get to university, right? In high school, AP classes, if you do well on the AP test, you're going to walk into college with credits. You can take dual credit classes that give you credits at university. And so when I walked in as a freshman at TCU, however many, 30 years ago or whatever, 35 years ago, I walked in with 14 credit hours. And that let me take a lighter load the whole rest of my time at college, right? And that's the main thing. And so it's, dual credit classes, things like that. Okay, these are all great questions. I really appreciate it. Glad to have you here, Kanana. And we can, and I think we will continue this question about, the stress of the SAT. We'll do another show in a couple of weeks, probably about that specific topic once I know more about the scoring of this new SAT.
All right, Bobby, as always, thanks for being here. And
Absolutely.
yeah, any other questions that come up, feel free to go to one of our Facebook pages or our YouTube channel, College Planning Untangled, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Well, have a great week, Kristin.
Bye.